Sometime today, you are going to make a sound you did not decide to make. Your diaphragm will start spasming. Bursts of air will get chopped out of your chest, roughly one every fifth of a second. Your face will contort. Your eyes might water. If it goes on long enough, you will actually lose the ability to stand up straight, and you will make a noise that, in any other context, would sound like an animal in distress, and it will feel wonderful. We call it laughing, and we treat it as one of the most ordinary things a human being can do. It is not ordinary. That sound is older than your language, older than your species, older than the ape that came before you. And here's the part almost nobody knows. It did not evolve because things were funny. Let's start by taking apart the thing you think you know. You think laughter is a response to comedy. Something is funny, you laugh. Cause, effect, clean. In the 1990s, a neuroscientist named Robert Provine decided to actually check, not in a lab. Labs are terrible places to study laughter because almost nobody laughs in one. So, he did something closer to birdwatching. He and his students went out into shopping malls and sidewalks and campus hallways and eavesdropped. Whenever they heard someone laugh, they wrote down the sentence that came immediately before it. They collected 1,200 of them. And when they looked at what people were actually laughing at, the results were faintly ridiculous. Fewer than 1 in 5 of the lines that triggered laughter were jokes, or funny stories, or anything a comedian would recognize as material. The rest were things like, "I'll see you guys later. Where have you been? It was nice meeting you too. Can I join you? I think I'm done." That last one is not a punchline nobody has ever laughed at. I think I'm done because of its comedic architecture, and it gets stranger. Provine found that the person speaking laughed more than the people listening, roughly 46% more, which makes no sense at all if laughter is a review. You don't applaud your own performance mid-sentence. But it makes perfect sense if laughter is something else entirely. Then there was the placement. Laughter almost never interrupted a sentence. In over 99% of cases, it landed in the gaps, at the end of a phrase, at the end of a thought, in the punctuation, which was Provine's word for it. Laughter punctuates speech. It's not the review of the sentence. It's part of the sentence. Sit with that for a second, because it reframes everything. When you laugh with a friend, you are not mostly evaluating their wit. You are doing something closer to nodding, closer to a handshake. You are sending a signal that says, "We're okay. I'm with you. Keep going." And you are sending it with a sound so automatic you don't notice you've made it. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If you're not deciding to laugh, who is? Here's where it gets properly strange. You have two kinds of laughter, and they come from two different parts of your brain. The first is the real one, the one that ambushes you. It runs through deep, old emotional circuitry, the brainstem, the amygdala, the ancient machinery your conscious mind does not have the keys to. That's why you can't stop it. That's why laughing in a silent room makes it worse. You are not driving. The second is the polite one, the one you produce in a work meeting. That one runs through motor circuits, the same general neighborhood your brain uses to move your face on purpose. It is, functionally, a performance, and you make it constantly. It's most of the laughter you'll hear today. Two systems, two origins, one sound, and we know how separable they are because of a 16-year-old girl. In 1998, a team of neurosurgeons was mapping the brain of a teenage patient before epilepsy surgery. This is routine. You stimulate a small patch of cortex. You see what it does. You make sure you're not about to remove something the patient needs. They touched a spot on her left frontal lobe, about 2 centimeters square. She laughed. They did it again. She laughed again. Every single time. At low current, just a smile. Turn it up, and she'd laugh out loud. An easy, genuine-sounding laugh. And here's the detail that should raise the hair on your arms. When they asked her why she was laughing, she didn't say, "I don't know." She explained it. She found a reason. The horse in that picture is funny. You guys standing around are funny. The laughter came first. The joke was reverse-engineered afterwards by a brain that couldn't accept it had just laughed at nothing, which suggests something slightly humbling about all of us. Some of the time, the funniness might be the story we tell ourselves to explain a noise our body already made. So if laughter isn't fundamentally about humor, what is it about? To answer that, you have to go back, not to jokes, not even to language, to before you could talk. Babies laugh at around 3 to 4 months old, give or take. Some earlier, some later, but that's the window. Smiling shows up around 6 to 8 weeks, and the first real chuckle follows roughly a month after. 3 months. At 3 months, an infant cannot speak, cannot walk, cannot reliably control its own hands, cannot recognize itself in a mirror, cannot understand a single word you are saying. But it can laugh at you. Laughter arrives years before language. It is one of the first pieces of social software that boots up in a human being, and it boots up before almost everything we consider distinctly human. And you can push that further. In the 20th century, the ethologist Irenaeus Abel Ibisfeld studied children who were born both deaf and blind. Children who had never seen a smile, never heard a laugh, who had no possible way to copy the expression from anyone around them. Tickle them, play with them, pat their cheeks, and their faces did the same thing yours does. The lip corners lift, the mouth opens, the teeth show, the head tips back. The laugh was already installed. It's not learned, it's issued, standard equipment, in the box from the factory. And notice what set it off. Not a joke, not wordplay, not irony, touch, play, another person. Which brings us to the weirdest reflex in the human body, tickling. Think about how bizarre tickling actually is. Someone touches your ribs, and you produce involuntary laughter, thrash around, try to escape, while, in most cases, wanting them to keep going. Pleasure and panic running at the same time, in the same body. And here's the crucial fact. You cannot do it to yourself. Go ahead and try. Same fingers, same ribs, same pressure. Nothing. The reason is a piece of neural bookkeeping. Every time your brain sends a command to move your hand, it also sends a copy of that command to your cerebellum, a prediction of what you're about to feel. When the real sensation arrives and matches the prediction, your brain quietly turns the volume down. It has to. Otherwise, you'd be overwhelmed by the feeling of your own clothes. Somebody else's fingers are unpredictable. No prediction, no cancellation. Full volume. Researchers proved this with almost comic elegance. They built a machine that let people tickle themselves through a robot arm. Press a button, a piece of foam strokes your palm. When the touch arrived instantly, it barely registered. But when they added a delay of a fraction of a second, breaking the match between prediction and reality, the same people started reporting it as ticklish. So the reflex has a condition built into it. It fires when the touch comes from outside, from somebody who is not you. Tickling isn't a body function. It's a social one, which is the moment to leave our species entirely. In the 1990s, a neuroscientist named Jacques Panksepp was studying play in juvenile rats, and he noticed something. When rats wrestle, and they wrestle constantly, they make a sound, a chirp at 50 kilohertz, far above human hearing. Drop it into a range we can hear, and it sounds unmistakably like giggling. So he did what any reasonable scientist would do. He tickled the rats. They chirped harder than during play with other rats. They chased his hand. They ran toward it. Given a choice, they would seek out the specific hand that had tickled them before. They were coming back for more. Now, be careful here. A rat is not laughing at a joke. Nobody is claiming rats have a sense of humor. What we're looking at is something upstream of humor. A vocal signal that fires during play, in a brain that shares deep structures with yours. And rats are not alone. In 2021, 2 researchers went through the scientific literature hunting for descriptions of animals making noise while playing. They found it documented in at least 65 species: chimps, gorillas, dolphins, cows, dogs, foxes, mongooses, 3 species of bird, 65 separate animals, most of which have never met, all making a distinct sound during play. That is not a coincidence. That is a solution, evolved and re-evolved to a problem that any social animal has. So what's the problem? Here it is. Play looks exactly like violence. Wrestling looks like fighting. Chasing looks like hunting. A play bite looks like a bite. If you're a young animal learning how to use your body, this is a serious hazard. One misread, and a game turns into an injury, or a broken alliance, or a dead relative. So you need a signal, a sound that says, "This is not real. I am not attacking you. This is safe." That's what laughter is. It is the sound of not being in danger. Which brings us to the hard zoom out. In 2009, a research team did something you'd think would be impossible. They tickled infant and juvenile orangutans, gorillas, chimpanzees, and bonobos, and human babies, and recorded every sound. Then they took those recordings and treated the acoustic features like genetic data. They ran them through the same kind of analysis biologists use to build family trees, and asked, if you knew nothing about these animals except the shape of their laughter, what tree would you draw? They got the right one. The laughter tree matched the genetic tree, orangutans branching off early, gorillas next, chimps and bonobos as our closest relatives, with the sounds closest to our own. The laugh is not a coincidence of anatomy, it is inherited. It is a family trait, passed down and slowly modified, branch after branch. And when they reconstructed the timeline, they got a number. Laughter took shape gradually across the last 10 to 16 million years. Let that sit. 10 million years ago, there were no humans, no Homo sapiens, no Neanderthals, no Homo erectus, No stone tools, no fire, no language, no name for anything. The ancestor doing the laughing was an ape in a forest, and it would be another 8 million years before anything resembling us started walking upright across a savanna. And already, in that forest, when two of them tumbled over each other in play, one of them made a sound, a rough, ragged panting, in and out with each breath. That's what ape laughter still sounds like. It rides both directions of the breath, like a dog panting. Somewhere along our branch, that changed. We started laughing only on the out-breath, in regular, voiced, chopped-up bursts. That regularity is one of the few things in this story that's genuinely ours. We took a pant and made it a rhythm, but the sound underneath it, the signal, the meaning, the "this is safe," that was already ancient when we inherited it, so why did we keep it? And why do we do it so much more than anything else alive? The best answer we have goes something like this. Most primates hold their societies together by grooming, sitting close, picking through each other's fur. It works because it's intimate, and because it triggers a release of endorphins, the brain's own opioids, in both animals. It builds trust chemically. But it has a hard ceiling. Grooming is one-on-one, and there are only so many hours in a day. Beyond a certain group size, you simply cannot touch everyone enough. Human groups blew past that ceiling. The anthropologist Robin Dunbar's argument is that we found a workaround. We found a way to groom people without touching them. Laughter. Because the physical act of laughing, the muscular effort of it, the convulsion of the diaphragm, triggers that same endorphin release. It's been tested repeatedly. Get people genuinely laughing, then measure how much discomfort they can tolerate, and their pain threshold rises measurably. Watch a comedy in a group, and it climbs further than watching it alone. Notice, it's the physical act that does it, not the cleverness of the joke. Laughter is grooming at a distance. Grooming, broadcast. And, unlike grooming, it scales. One person can laugh with 5 people at once, or 50. It travels across a room, through a doorway, down a table. It's the reason a comedy is better in a full cinema. It's the reason canned laughter exists at all. Someone worked out you could counterfeit the signal and it would still partly work. We are the only animal that turned a playpant into social infrastructure, which is also why we're so good at spotting a fake one. In one study, researchers played recordings of real and forced laughter to nearly 900 people across 21 societies. From industrialized cities to small-scale communities with almost no contact with Western media. Everyone could tell the difference. Not perfectly, but reliably, everywhere. And the people who were best at it were from the smallest, most tightly knit societies. The places where knowing whether someone actually likes you is not a social nicety, but a survival skill. That instinct you have. The flicker of that wasn't real when a colleague laughs at your joke. That isn't paranoia. That's a 10-million-year-old signal detection system doing its job. And there's a flip side to that, which you have absolutely felt. Laughter is catching. Hear a real one. And your brain starts getting ready to produce its own. Brain imaging shows that pleasant sounds like laughter light up the premotor cortex, the region that preps your facial muscles for what they're about to do. And they do it roughly twice as strongly as unpleasant sounds, like screaming. You have experienced this in its most inconvenient possible form. A place where you absolutely must not laugh. A funeral, an exam hall, a meeting. One other person cracks, and you are gone. Physically shaking, biting your cheek, entirely out of control. That is not weakness. That is the signal doing precisely what it evolved to do. Because a play signal received by one animal is useless. It has to spread. It has to sweep across a whole group and tell all of them at once that whatever is happening here is safe. Because a signal this old, this automatic, and this contagious can slip its leash. In January 1962, at a girls' boarding school in the village of Kashasha, in what was then Tanganyika, 3 students started laughing and couldn't stop. It spread. Within weeks, 95 of the school's 159 students were affected. Attacks came in waves, laughing, then crying, then restlessness, sometimes lasting hours. The school shut down in March. The students went home. It kept spreading, villages, then other schools. Over the following months, something like 1,000 people were affected, and 14 schools closed. Doctors examined them and found nothing. No fever, no toxin, no infection. Physically, these were healthy children. The leading explanation today is stress. Tanganyika had just become independent. Expectations at home and at school had risen sharply. These were young people under enormous pressure, in an environment where that pressure had nowhere to go. And one of the oldest, most contagious signals in the human repertoire caught. and spread and would not stop. Nobody there was having fun. Which tells you something important about what laughter really is. It is not a synonym for joy. Joy is one of the things that pulls the trigger. But the mechanism sits underneath joy, older and dumber and far more automatic than we like to think. So, here's where we land. The next time it happens to you, the real kind, the kind that ambushes you, that bends you over and steals your breath and makes you slap a table, I want you to notice what's actually going on. Your body is running a program that was written before language, before fire, before your species had a name for anything at all. 10 million years ago, in a forest that no longer exists, an animal you will never see and cannot picture rolled around with another one of its kind and made a rough panting sound that meant one thing: you're safe with me. That animal is gone. The forest is gone. Every generation between them and you is gone. But the sound survived, passed down, breath to breath, ape to ape, parent to child, for 10 million years without ever once being written down. And it's still doing exactly the same job. That's what's happening when your friend says something stupid and you can't breathe. You're not reviewing the joke. You're telling them they're safe. Go find someone. Laugh at nothing with them. It's the oldest thing you know how to say.